All right, let's jump right into this. We are looking at a really fascinating forecast, one that peers 25 years into the future to see how our cities are going to transform into, well, something else entirely. And we're not just talking about taller skyscrapers or faster subways here. We're talking about a complete reimagining of what a city even is. And this quote? It really gets to the very heart of the whole idea. You've got these immense pressures, climate change on one hand and massive overpopulation on the other. And it means the old way of doing things, it's just not going to cut it. The core idea is that our cities have to stop being these passive concrete jungles and start acting like living, breathing organisms that can adapt. That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How in the world does a city become alive? It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but the roadmap is actually laid out in these distinct phases. And it all kicks off by giving the city, well, a brain and a nervous system. So, this first phase, which is predicted to happen between 2026 and 2032, is all about getting the basics right. This is where we lay the digital groundwork, mixing in new materials and powerful AI to let our cities feel and react to what's happening around them for the very first time. And get this, the confidence level for the near future is incredibly high. This 95% isn't just a random number. It represents a very strong belief that by 2026, green or solar roofs will be required on all new commercial buildings. So, according to this forecast, this isn't some far-off dream. It's literally right around the corner. And you can see just how fast things are supposed to start moving. In 2027, we're talking industrial-scale 3D printing for emergency housing. A year later, AI is doing the actual designing for our most efficient buildings. Then we get to the really wild stuff, like concrete that can heal itself by 2030. And by 2032, your office window is also a power plant. Okay, we have to stop on this self-healing concrete for a second, because it is a perfect example of this new way of thinking. It's kind of like an immune system for a building. So when the concrete gets a crack, rainwater gets in and activates these tiny bacteria that are just waiting inside. They then produce limestone that fills the crack, literally healing the wound. Our buildings are learning to fix themselves. How cool is that? Okay, so once we've got those smart foundations in place, the city kind of levels up. It enters its next phase of evolution. And this phase is all about survival. The city isn't just smart anymore. It's learning how to actively protect itself and its people from some pretty serious climate threats. And you can really see the shift here. By 2033, we have these digital twins to run disaster drills. In 2034, our homes are no longer fixed in place. You could literally move your apartment with a drone. Then we start building down with earth scrapers in 2037. And by 2041, the actual skin of our buildings can move and adapt to the sun and weather. Let's really break down this digital twin idea, because it's an absolute game changer for cities. Picture a perfect one-to-one digital copy of, say, Miami or Shanghai that lives in a computer. Now, before a Category 5 hurricane even gets close, an AI can run thousands of simulations on that digital city to figure out the absolute best way to prepare and respond in the real world. It's like having a crystal ball. And all of this innovation leads to a massive turning point around 2040. For the very first time in history, our buildings could actually become carbon negative. I mean, they'll literally pull more carbon dioxide out of the air than it took to build them in the first place. This is where architecture stops being part of the problem and starts being a huge part of the solution. And that brings us to the final act, Phase 3. This is where the city completes its transformation. Between 2042 and 2050, it takes that final leap from being a super smart machine to a fully integrated biological system. This is where the line between the built world and the natural world just dissolves. I mean, just listen to this stuff. By 2043, we'll have towering vertical forests that literally act as the city's lungs. Fast forward to 2047, and we don't need electric streetlights anymore because the plants around us will glow. By 2049, the city has its own stomach, digesting its own garbage for power. And then the final incredible step in 2050, we stop building things altogether, we start to grow them. Just pause and really picture that for a second. Imagine walking home one night, not under the harsh buzz of a street lamp, but through the soft, living glow coming from the trees and even the buildings themselves. We're talking about a future that's not just more efficient, but, maybe a lot more magical. Okay, but here's a really important twist. This future isn't going to look the same everywhere, not even close. The forecast actually predicts what it calls a global fracture, where different parts of the world have to adapt in completely different ways depending on their own unique challenges. So in Europe, it's all about history. They're not going to tear down Paris to build a new city. Instead, think of it like performing delicate, high-tech surgery on ancient buildings, carefully embedding the latest technology inside structures that are hundreds of years old. Now, over in the Asia-Pacific region, they're dealing with these epic challenges, huge populations and rising oceans. So the response is just as epic. We're talking about building these titanic, self-contained cities in a single building. They're called arcologies, and massive seawalls to quite literally hold back the tide. Now, Africa's story is all about the leapfrog. Faced with a massive population boom, the idea is that the continent will bypass 20th century construction methods entirely. You'll see fleets of giant 3D printers using local materials to build entire smart cities from scratch, and at a speed we've just never seen before. Then, in South America, it's a completely different vibe. It's all about fusion, social and ecological. The goal there is to blend the formal cities with the informal settlements, the favelas, using new lightweight structures, while also tapping into ancient indigenous wisdom for things like natural cooling and ventilation. But the forecast for North America, well, it's a bit of a warning. It points towards a future of deep division. The prediction is that private money, think tech companies and billionaires, will build their own isolated, super resilient smart cities, while the older public cities are left to deal with crumbling infrastructure and not enough money to fix it. And this chart just lays it all out, side by side. It's a tale of two futures, really. On one side, you have these brand new, green, AI-managed utopias for a select few. And on the other, you have the public zones, vulnerable, underfunded, and just trying to keep their heads above water. It's a pretty stark contrast. So what does this all mean when you put it together? When you connect all these dots? The new materials, the AI, the different ways the world adapts, you get to this really mind-blowing conclusion. The whole way we've built our homes and cities for thousands of years, it could just end. And this final quote just says it all perfectly. The ultimate endgame here is a total shift from mechanical work to biological cultivation. We stop being builders piling up bricks, and we start becoming gardeners of living architecture. So just let that idea settle in for a minute. The places where most of humanity is going to live are on a path to become living, feeling, thinking entities. Which leaves you with one last pretty wild thought, doesn't it? If our cities actually do become alive, what on earth will they dream of? What kind of consciousness could come from all of that interconnected life and technology? And that is something to think about.